Hello and welcome to the StreamGeeks podcast. Today we're talking about our brand new esports scholarship and why we're so excited that colleges and universities are starting to roll these babies out.
Welcome to the post-show podcast with your hosts, Paul Richards, Tess Protesto, and Michael Luttermoser. Let's talk shop.
All right, welcome everybody. Could not be more excited to just announce my esports and education book.
Yay!
We're so excited. We're going to the Future of Education and Technology show in Miami, Florida, the NAMM show, the North American Music Show in
this week,
California.
right?
No, it's next week. They're both next week.
Okay,
I'm going to be giving out lots of copies of my book, Esports and Education. And central to, I think, the whole esports movement into education is the scholarships, right? Because those scholarships are what drive students to go, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to pay for my college education by really working on my craft and getting good at video games.
Wait, it's not collecting Fortnite cards and having the best collection ever?
So Michael's joking about this. It's kind of funny. I was at the dollar store with my son and we were buying a flashlight or something. And I look over and I see, oh my gosh, Fortnite trading cards? Really?
Pretty cool.
Taking up half the shelf of the collectible cards.
Is there any baseball cards there?
There was no baseball cards, no
Wow.
football cards. I don't know if football cards ever were a thing.
I think they were
A little
in the
bit
90s.
maybe. There were basketball cards though, and the NBA has really been popping off.
Basketball cards.
And I don't know if we
Interesting.
talked about this on the podcast, but the NBA has been really embracing the esports movement.
Oh, yeah.
And Take-Two
Have
Interactive, there's 27. The actual number's going to elude me. But there's a bunch of esports teams that play professional basketball.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes,
Professional
yeah.
video gaming basketball.
Yeah.
It's based on NBA 2K. And I think we did talk about this on the podcast on the last episode because the interesting thing about esports and basketball, for example, is that basketball is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Fortnite might not be here tomorrow, but basing an esports league and team and career on a video game that's based on football, baseball, basketball, that makes a lot more sense sometimes if you want to have a long career.
I can... let me just quickly throw this out there. I can remember, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, I can remember following a couple hip-hop artists from back in the day, and they would jump on just 2012 on Instagram, being made someone cry on Madden.
Yeah.
Join me. You can find me on Madden. Try to take me on and see if you can, take me on and stuff like that. So that's
How cool would that be to play Drake on
Yeah,
Madden?
yeah. There's any artist you can think of. Yeah, they were on.
Yeah, there's that convergence of music and esports, which is
Yeah.
so important, that
Yeah.
culture side of things, where everybody knows the people who make that music.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so funny. I feel like musicians and artists get overrepresented in the media and exposure based off of the difference between professional video gamers. No one knows who these kids are, yet everybody knows who Taylor Swift is.
Right.
Except for the few elite in gaming.
But yet video gaming industry is 140 billion and the music industry is 20 billion. Way smaller.
Yeah. They just been around a lot longer, like Elvis from the 50s, Beatles
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s. So you have that ingrained in culture.
Yeah, and sometimes
then.
you see like from my perspective, when you see a team of esports kids who just won the League of Legends and they're walking on stage, I just see 4 teens. I don't see that one recognizable person that is there.
An individual artist.
Yeah, there's no individual
there's
artist.
There's someone that's I'm a hip hop artist.
Yeah.
Do gamers try to brand themselves if really
They
serious
do.
ones?
They do. And
Seen a couple.
You watch professional
definitely has
streaming and
a lot.
stuff, and we're getting a little off topic, but you watch professional streamers and they have their hashtags and it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's my Instagram is Mr. Diz, my Twitter's Mr. Diz too, and they try to stay consistent and
Yeah.
brand themselves.
Definitely.
And I could picture them coming up with signature catchphrases and stuff. Right?
Yeah,
Excuse
I
me.
could definitely see that happening. So we're so excited here at StreamGeeks to have our own esports scholarship, which is such a step in the right direction for our company. We're a small video production streaming organization, if you will. We don't even know what to call ourselves sometimes, but to be able to get $1,000 scholarship out there to help a student who's somehow involved in esports and live streaming. It's just the right direction for our company. Like what scholarships have done for esports is they've totally legitimized the, hey, mom and dad, I can really get a scholarship here.
And to educators who are responsible for selecting what to take seriously and not.
It's true, and it's really a great trickle down, because if colleges and universities are legitimately building facilities, teams, and then offering scholarships, that kind of trickles down to the high school level, where it's like, well, are we properly preparing these kids to, grow into an industry? Now, I don't blame, and by the way, the whole book that I just wrote, Esports and Education, is really trying to understand this idea that educators, aren't prepared for this. None of the sports, the gym coaches, the sports people, when you go to learn about sports science to be, a massage therapist or in the sports industry or a coach,
sports medicine,
they don't really have textbooks that represent anything about esports. It's just grown so quickly, so fast, that everyone's kind of reeling in, like, oh my gosh, like, how do we prepare students for a career or even just a college level, undergraduate, where they're part of their tuition is being paid for by a scholarship in an esports team. Like, it can't just be kids in their basements playing video games all night. We need to bring this to, because that could be dangerous, to be completely honest. And the point of it, really kind of the thesis of the whole book of Esports and Education, is that video games are like nuclear fission. You can be used to create nuclear energy, which is totally clean. That has its own problems, but or it can be used to make an atomic bomb, right? So there's a light side and a dark side. So video games can be used to build teamwork, communication, problem solving, so many things. But if you have a kid at home who's playing till 2 a.m. every night, and his eyeballs are falling out of his head, and he's maybe going to get PTSD, or maybe going to get brain damage, or maybe hurt long-term memory issues, right? There's a lot of things that can happen when you have unsupervised, unlimited gameplay. So how do we bring it into the education system so that we can say, hey, get a full night's sleep? Because when you get to school, you're going to be happy to be here because you're going to get a chance to perform on a varsity level sport, but you need your sleep and you need a healthy balance. And these things have to be shepherded by educators and parents and guidance counselors and everyone involved in the chain, coaches, for goodness sake. Right? It's that important. And the saving grace is the fact that this is something that actually qualifies as a sport. This is not a subculture of like punk. Like how do educators prepare kids for like punk music? It's like you can't. But with esports, you can. You can bring them in and say, "Hey, kid, you're really good at esports. Come to school and bring like an actual attitude of let's get good at something. Let's use real skills, our minds, and let's prepare you for possibly a scholarship in school." Just like you would with basketball or football. But, it's funny because with culture and the way that it shifts, the thing that you look at, a lot of educators are thinking, wow, is this just like a fad, like rock and roll or like punk or grunge is going to go away or something? But if as being a sport and being as pervasive as video games are, it's not just a fad.
We'll be watching, very close to that. Does it trend upward? Do you see like it widening out? Like, is it going in like this other, it's really good because we're seeing other companies from other industries jump on. Like Puma made their own gaming shoe.
Yeah.
When you can buy 3 different types of shoes that have different
that even
powers.
Mean?
Exactly.
Really?
What does that mean?
It's just like a marketing campaign.
Like seriously, I need a pair of these to see if like it grips, as you slide to get your snacks. If you're like running around the house, like sliding around. I don't know, but like you're seeing like, a shoe company come out with a shoe.
I have to Google that.
Yeah. Well, you hit on multiple interesting areas of the esports industry. One is that it's not just gaming. Okay, Puma is a brand.
Yeah.
And Puma employs lots of people.
Yeah.
And now I'm guessing that Puma now has a couple people at least in their organization that's focusing on esports. This wouldn't happen with a global brand like Puma if they didn't have at least somebody saying, let's get serious about esports. So somebody in the marketing department at Puma has got the right thinking. And I know Nike has done it. Apparently, like, Dolce & Gabbana had, like, freaking Fortnite bags that sold out.
Wow.
Not even kidding. And these are, by the way, these are digital bags, okay? Microtransaction sold
okay,
bags that are
okay.
all like limited quantity bags. So like, I guess there's how many, tens of millions of kids playing Fortnite at any given day, and like only a few of them have the Dolce & Gabbana bags.
And
on their characters.
like you're playing in a huge group and you see the person that has a different character, they've spent money on their microtransactions.
And that shows a couple things. One is that it's good for brands and it's good for big business because they want to get involved. So that means marketing jobs are going to be there. There's going to be brand ambassador jobs on there. And that's on both sides of the fence. When I describe the fences, there's big consumer brands, and then there's the game developers who are just as big.
Yeah.
Right? These Epic Games, these Blizzard Entertainment groups.
Yeah.
And they both, on both sides of the fence, need salespeople to sell the marketing placements to the big brands. So that's a huge one. And then the other one that Goldman Sachs reported in a new report, by 2022, one of the biggest growing sides of the esports market is media sponsorships.
Yeah.
So like Fortnite, for example, had their Winter Royale, which is basically like the Super Bowl of esports because it's the biggest video game in the world. It's the biggest tournament they have, kind of thing. And they sold out some giant stadium. I can't remember which one it was. So 20,000 people were there.
Wow.
I mean, it was big. And they didn't have a single sponsorship. Not a single sponsor. Like when you watch the NFL football or any game, or even like people watch the Super Bowl just to watch the commercials. Like
Yes.
it's become that right there. That is a mature market.
Yeah.
If it's gotten to the point where people straight up watch, like there's a certain segment, I don't even know what percentage, that watches the Super Bowl just for the
For the
game.
If I
halftime
come
show.
over just to have some chips and guacamole with you to watch like some commercials, like what does that say? Like what is that power? Like spending like a Sunday eating like guacamole and chips.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people, because think about it, like with football, like you really, like it's rare that your team is in the game. But like everybody still watches the game, and everybody watches these darn commercials. So when do you leave your seat? Like just to pee, obviously, because like you got to watch the game.
During the game.
And during the game, right? You don't want to leave. So, but think about that as far as how much growth the esports market needs today.
Yeah.
If literally the biggest video game show, entertainment system out there had zero sponsors. Now the issue with this is one of the issues is that these video game companies are growing so fast they don't have the staff. So there was a study done, and again Emil Bodenstein, I write about him in my book. He's the CEO of Alpha North Esports Federation, or maybe skip the federation part, I can't remember. But he did a study, and they looked at, because he comes from the Major League Baseball world, and he was actually, his first thing in esports was helping Major League Baseball players have their own private Fortnite group, so people could watch their favorite Major League Baseball player like play Fortnite. And it was fun. He did that. He helped get all the rights with the Major League Baseball Players Association. But anyway, he did a study and he looked at Major League Baseball and NFL and basketball and the staff that it takes to run a franchise, right? So like the Mavericks are a franchise, the Golden Nuggets are a franchise. I can't remember everybody. Like the Phillies are a franchise.
Yeah.
The New York Giants are a franchise, right? These are franchises. They have huge staffs, 200, 300, 1,000 people working for them. And a significant amount of them, the majority of them are non-athletic athletes, right? They're not athletes. Then they looked at esports franchises, right, which are popping up all over the place, right? Because it's so totally different. It's really a strange scenario here, but he was kind of explaining it to me from here's real sports, here's esports. And esports had like 2 or 3 non-gaming jobs because they haven't built out their staff to the point that they need to. Because if they're going to be bigger than sports, bigger than the NFL, they're going to need huge staffs to manage all the sponsorships and placements and sales and all the thing that goes along with it.
I feel like a lot of people are waiting, or a lot of our companies are kind of just still like watching very, very closely. They're watching like for a catalyst where there's like a dip where they can enter and write it back up, or if they, like you're talking about, if there's a fad and the catalyst happens and it keeps on going down. So I feel like, as the next couple of years happen, you're going to see more of that when you're talking about that infrastructure.
Yeah, that
maybe with the
infrastructure needs to
arenas.
happen.
That's
Well,
got to open some
the
job
arenas are an
opportunities.
interesting. That's an interesting part of it because the arenas were great in South Korea, not North Korea, South Korea, right? The arenas are huge.
dear.
And they're sold out all the time, and it's like the thing in South Korea. And South Korea is usually 5 to 10 years ahead of the United States when it comes to like cultural movements, video gaming, and things like that.
Internet
like Japan,
culture,
internet culture, stuff like that. They always kind of lead that side, which is interesting. It has to do with, I think, their culture in general. But, the United States has got a really awesome culture, and we're very diverse here. So we are a little slower, but I think we're a lot more of a melting pot, and that's why. But anyway,
we're a big country.
We're a huge country.
It's really big.
But the esports stadiums are not proven in the United States.
Yeah.
And there's one in St. Louis that's apparently empty. Oh, no, wait. No, that was a joke somebody told me. Somebody told me a joke about
blew
that.
me out.
There was a joke about there's an empty stadium in St. Louis. It's because the Rams left St. Louis and they went to
okay, all right,
they went to California, I think. No, there's no empty esports stadium in St. Louis. That was a joke I was missing in my head. But it's not proven, and the games change so quickly. And who are there's no franchise, there's no leagues. Like there's a couple leagues, but like Epic Games with Fortnite does not have a league. Yeah. They just own everything. And that was the point I wanted to get to. I know we're going way off topic here, but like Epic Games has such an epic amount of control over their Royale tournaments because they own everything. So like with the NFL, you've got all these agreements with all these teams and all these franchises, and they manage their players, and everybody knows there's going to be a Super Bowl every year. Everybody knows there's going to be an AFC championship and an NFC championship. But with like Epic Games, like they change the rules so quickly. We're going to do a duo thing. We're going to do a team royale thing. And they own everything. There are no like commissioners and like franchises out there that like know they're going to get to play in the Super Bowl every time. So it's kind of a weird world where like these game developers have so much control. And in my opinion, what it looks like with Fortnite, now Fortnite might just be a blip. It's like, whoa, those guys are super hot, now they're gone or whatever. Or maybe they stay hot for a long time. Who knows? I like to always say that Ninja Blevins, or Tyler Blevins, Ninja, he was a Halo player, professional Halo player. He switched to Fortnite so that he could, then he blew up and rode that wave. But I think Epic Games, what I hear is that a lot of the employees are working like 100-hour weeks, getting stressed out of their minds because they're just trying to keep up with the growth of Fortnite, and make those digital Pumas and everything that they got to do to stay on top of the game. And it's stressful, and they're not, I'm not saying they're doing a bad job because obviously they're kicking butt, right? So I'm not saying they're doing a great job. They're riding the wave. But I think that when you get into that startup mentality, that Silicon Valley, whoa, we're growing way too fast, like that Facebook thing where they would be like, move fast and break things. Yeah. Like they haven't had the hindsight and they're really I'm trying to think of the right word for this, but the luxury of growing slowly like the NFL has. Yeah. And to get to that point where you can have all those backdoor deals and those buddy, hey man, we're going to do this. And, the esports industry is like, you're either in this or you're not. And it's already done. And the Winter Royale had more viewers than all of cable television. And boom, the internet just changed the world. So I don't know. Exactly. Like we're not seeing like Ninja on the Wheaties box yet. No. We're not seeing Frito-Lay come out with like the purple Twitch tortilla chips.
I could picture I could picture that at least happening.
Although I can't wait till you guys go to TwitchCon because it is interesting to see
there are purple
like the bugles that are like snacks that are like have the biggest booth at TwitchCon. You're like, whoa, dude! Like you're not very healthy over here, Mr. Bugle.
Interesting comment from Tracy on Facebook. As a nurse, teacher, and mom of a 9th grade gamer, it will be important to identify potential health issues that can arise and help develop preventative strategies.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, I would like to tell Tracy to please get a free copy of my book at ptzoptics.com/book. There's a whole chapter on the issues, because that was so important to me because I have had so many conversations with mothers as a parent myself. I am worried. My personal parenting strategy could be wrong, but my strategy is to like show my son like the older video games while he's young, like play Pac-Man with my son, play, you know, when he's a little older, Street Fighter or whatever, or different games. Super Mario Kart, Mario, and stuff like that. So it's not like I hid video games from him his whole life. Yeah. It's like he knows what they are, but like Pac-Man right now doesn't entertain him that much. And he's like, let's go outside and play. And I'm like, okay, that's what I really want, but I want to just show him like the history of video games, where they've come from. Because by the time my son is 4 now, by the time he's 9 or 10 and he's going to be wanting to play whatever it is, it's going to be like no stopping him. So, I
agree with you. My parents, my mom didn't allow me to listen to my dad's Led Zeppelin albums, and I grew up on Billy Joel and Elton John, who are great artists in themselves. But if you think that's the only thing out there, and then you find out, oh, there's this other stuff, what do you think happened? And then Michael got into like hardcore punk rock, and made mom like upset, Manson. You know. Yeah, or Marilyn Manson, stuff like that. It totally backfired. So yeah,
it does, and the whole education system needs to learn from that. And I really do think that there's pushback. I do think that there's people saying we can't have kids playing video games in school.
Wait till the first book comes out about all the negative crap on video games. 5 years from now, 4 years from now, 2025. It could be anything like carpal tunnel and my kid's eye fell out and all this stuff, and like health reasons for e-gaming. That book will be huge.
Well, there is just a chapter in my book that says like, here's the issues, like brain damage is real. The World Health Organization has a disease that's called video game addiction. Like it's like the World Health Organization has a category of diseases, and one of them is a mental disorder for video game addiction. It's been studied, and some kids actually retreat to the video game world. And you know, neglect to make friends in real life, or want to meet people in real life, and like there's this disillusion of like needing, because like the chaos of like society. And then they did another study in Europe where they studied for 6 years. They studied like 1,000 students, and what they realized is that video games in themselves are not the source of most like social anxiety, social disorders that people assume are with video games. Video games themselves are just a place that kids go to deal with. They're more of a result than the cause. So, and it's more talked about in the book, but they've really studied it, and they go, you know, like video games themselves are neither good nor bad. It's the way that they're used, obviously, and generally they're used as like an outlet for students to deal with their anger.
I get that.
And it didn't matter whether it was like Mario or like a violent game. The issue, in my opinion, as a parent, is that there are games with drugs. There are games with sexual content. There are games with obviously violence. And I do think that violent games are linked to violence in real life. But that's just me. I mean, the studies don't necessarily prove that. So anyway, all of that, and then the just getting to Tracy's point, I don't know if she's still here with us watching live on Facebook, but then the second to last chapter is all about strategies that parents can take to really get educational value out of the video games for their kids. And like the number one place to start is to play video games with your kids. Okay, because then you can be that regulating force in their lives, and you also position yourself as an ally in their mind. So, you know, my mom plays video games with me every once in a while. I kick her butt. I school her. I mean, do soccer moms, you know, play a lot of soccer with their kids? No, but they'll kick the ball around. They'll kick it back to them, you know, in the field, right? So, I mean, like, it's okay for them to school you, but you kind of now are in their minds like an ally. You want to get yourself as an ally in their minds. Yeah. You don't want to be the person who's always shutting down the one thing that they like to do, because that is not going to help. So there's that, but there's also like encouraging questions. So like if your kid's buys a $60 video game and you know they're going to play 40 hours of content, right? There's 40 hours of content if they do it all right, but it could take them months to finish, right? You should try to understand that game, and I honestly think you should buy that little booklet that is like the guide to the game that you can buy on Amazon or whatever, and ask your your son or your daughter questions that will stimulate the strategy side of things. Like, did you solve the puzzle that is very difficult, and did you consider it looking at it this way? Like, what if you had the guide and they didn't, you know? And it's like, oh, yeah, so you're stuck on level 3. Did you think about, doing some outside video gaming
book club?
research? Like, there's great games like SimCity and stuff like that
yeah.
where you have to build a railroad. And, like, in order to really do it properly, you have to go out of the game, get a book on city planning, and read it and understand how to build a city. And then you can complete the game. So there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of questions parents can ask. And the final thing, I mean, there's more than just one final thing, but
there's so much.
One of the best things that you can encourage a kid to do is to journal about their video gaming experience. And this has been studied throughout all education. And that's why it's so important to write essays and things throughout school. It's because as soon as you write down what you're thinking, just that process alone allows you to contextualize and get perspective and find the words and the vocabulary that's required to really kind of explain what you're feeling. And the study was done by a professor from Arizona State University, and he realized that there needs to be a new form of literacy. Okay? Kids are literate when they can read a book. We can read a book, but can you read a video game? What does it mean to be able to read a video game? How do you understand it? And it actually came down to 3 basic principles that were really quite interesting. And any educator out there, if they want to understand how to teach kids how to do esports properly and get education, you have to understand this basic process of being literate, video game literate. And it's simple. You need to learn how to create a game, right? Create your own game. Like that mentally. Even if the game is like tag or like, hey, tic-tac-toe, or like, I want to get a game, first person to see something red in the room wins, like whatever. You understand the concept of how to create a game. The next one is you have to play a game. Understand how to play a game. And then really understand like the elements that go into it. So you know how to create a game, you know how to play a game. And then the last one's bothering me because there's like 3 steps. But the overall arching thesis of it is that like kids are playing video games all over the place. Teachers are using video games in school to teach word search, math. I mean, I remember playing math games in school and loving them, to be honest. It was like 12 snowballs, put 4 of them over here, and then you win.
Definitely remember this one like Master Blaster or something like that. Yeah.
And so there's all that stuff in there, but like even today, and so there's actually one other chapter that I think would be really helpful for parents who are either concerned. I've just talked to so many parents who are concerned. Like, I know someone who, all I'm going to say is that they were so concerned that they took their child out of college because they were concerned that they were playing too many video games at night and that they weren't going to be able to get the most out of the courses in the day. Mm-hmm. And like, they're like, I'm paying a lot of money to send you to college, and I know for a fact that you're playing video games till 2 in the morning every night. There's no way your mind can also get A's in school. Mm-hmm. So they were like, we need to get this video game thing under control before we start spending, tons of money on your college education. But anyway, there's this one chapter, obviously understanding the history of video games, perspective. Mm-hmm. And then there's another chapter on the study of video games and how that has progressed. Like, it wasn't until 2000, like this century, very early 2000s, where there was even an academic peer-reviewed paper on game studies. So like in the past 20 years, it's all kind of happened, and I don't go over every, step of the way, but I think I give educators and parents a good kind of overview of the past 20 years, which is kind of where it all started. I mean, the video game revolution started in the earliest video games in like the 50s. I mean, there was one in the early 40s, was the very first video game ever. The Nimitron was debuted at the 1939 World Fair in New York City. That was the Nimitron. That was the very first video game. But then, professors from MIT started to build like tic-tac-toe and stuff like that to just prove. And then in the early 50s, 60s, it was mainly just like
that's like an arcade game.
It looks like an arcade game. It's based on Nim, which is an ancient game of picking up sticks, and then the last person to pick up the stick loses. There's strategy involved about how many sticks you pick up. And then, the 70s, obviously we had like arcade games come out. Pac-Man was huge during that time. Pong from Atari. And then we had the console wars.
Yeah.
Right? So the 80s was they say the 60s, 70s, and 80s was like the or sorry, 70s, 80s was the arcade revolution. The 90s, we got Sega.
Consoles. Yep.
We had SNES.
PlayStation, Sega.
So we grew up in
Nintendo.
that era where the
Yeah.
consoles, like I had a Sega.
I wasn't allowed to go to the arcade at the mall because it smelled like cigarette smoke, and my mom thought like unsavory characters hung out there. And so she's like, "No, Michael."
Not going
That's
to the
so
arcade.
She's like,
funny.
"We're gonna get you a Super Nintendo, and you can be safe in suburbia."
So you got the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
You could. There was 2-player. You know. there
Yeah.
was some
Oh yeah. I
games
played.
there.
My sister and I played Super Mario Kart. You know.
Yeah, the graphics were like so bad back then.
They
But
were so amazing though back
they
then. too.
exactly, and that's the thing people need to realize, and that's what students need the perspective of, is when the consoles came and it was 16-bit and then it was 32-bit and it was like,
64-bit with
whoa.
Nintendo 64.
And then Nintendo 64, and then PlayStation 2 was the best-selling console of all time, still to this day. Xbox, and then Xbox Live, and then like the PC gaming explosion, and then now, you know, we talked on our last podcast, we won't have to go over this, but I'm glad we talked about the whole League of Legends thing and the free-to-play model
Yeah.
and the microtransactions and then
yeah.
the Fortnite explosion. And then to today, and I'm so happy that I wrote this book because I hope somebody out there gets it and looks at it and goes, I forgot that Pac-Man is like where, you know,
Yeah.
was like one of the first games in the 80s that Namco introduced. And they, you know, it was one of the first ones where they were like, we want women to play this.
Mrs. Pac-Man.
Now,
Mrs. Pac-Man.
women are just as big as men are in the video game scene.
Yeah.
But in the early days, you know, it was different. And so I just think that perspective alone, if anything, students come back with a perspective and they go, oh, you couldn't play video games. There were no smartphones. Oh, because they forget this stuff. Seriously. I mean, when you're given a
Yeah.
smartphone, I gave my son an iPhone 7. My wife and I do it all the time. We're like, here, watch YouTube on this iPhone and just eat your dinner, please. You know, and it's like, where were the iPhones when we were kids? We just had to eat our dinner or cry a river,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's been a crazy world. Anyway, we got to run. That's our show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching. Comment below. If you know someone who's good at video games, tell them about our esports scholarship.
I'm gonna
real.
sign up. I'm really good at video games. I'm gonna get a scholarship.
Extra education?
Some
StreamGeeks.us/esports.
extra education.
All right. I was talking during Tessa's thing. StreamGeeks.us/esports. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Kind of lost our outro.
Are you guys here?